The closest connection I actually have to Wayne Gretzky is that my son Lewis's cousin goes to the same high school as Wayne Gretzky's kid. Out in California.
So I wanted to just thank you for stepping up and being available for our one-on-one. We're going to have like a fireside chat format. So if folks have questions.
You see what happens. I thought Wayne Gretzky was coming, so I didn't prepare a talk. So you guys have to tell me what to say.
Actually, to help with that, we'll have my microphone on this side of the room. We've got another one Tim's got there on the other side. And if you have a question, we have a line started. But I'm going to jump in first if there's nothing preventing us from getting going. So I've been using Perl for a little while, like almost 20, maybe a little more.
Me too.
Years, not minutes. And every so often, as you know, I was reading some of the early books or teaching a new person a couple of quick scripts or something, I'd run across a phrase, well, this is the language the way Larry wrote it. And if you want it to be different, go ahead and write another one. So I've kind of noticed that people have been doing that for about 20-some years.
Yeah.
And I was just, the other thing I would hear at the same time is the linguist suggests, go write another language. So I'm thinking, is that like just job security? You figure if there's more languages in the world, you're all set in case this Perl gig doesn't work out?
Yeah, well, I could do a number of other gigs if this Perl gig doesn't work out. I actually started out majoring in chemistry and music in college and studied several other things before I settled on linguistics and computers. The last couple of years I've been playing drums in the worship team at my church. So, if you need a jazz drummer at your club, I'm getting okay at that. But job security, you can't really control how many languages there are going to be or not going to be. You cannot prevent someone from writing a new language if they're determined to, and many people seem to be determined to write a new language, so you might as well get used to it. I did it. I can't blame anybody else for doing it. And on the other hand, Mats and I get along really well, and Guido maybe a little less so, but we're all okay with each other. We all know that we're all egomaniacs anyway. So.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I will remind people that we'll be, or in case you didn't hear me, we'll encourage people to line up along the sides of the room if you have questions. And I found one.
Yeah.
So I'm new. I'm kind of getting into programming. Uh-huh. Why should I choose Perl?
Beats me. If you think like I do, then you probably will like Perl. If you don't think like I do, you probably won't like Perl. So these are kind of self-selected folks here. They think Perl is great because they just happen to think kind of like me from time to time. Perl is a language that, since I had my training in linguistics as well as computers, it doesn't work the standard way that your typical mathematician would design a computer language. Sometimes that's been a good thing, sometimes it's been a bad thing. I'm trying to learn, still learning the difference between those. But so some of these other languages, they're in some ways cleaner, more like a mathematical formula would be. Perl was sort of designed to be a little messy, the way a natural language is, but you have lots of words, lots of verbs, lots of ways you can express yourself. So the whole idea of there's more than one way to do it, Tim Toady for short, which is kind of my nickname, that appeals to some people and it doesn't appeal to other people. Some people like to be told what to do, I guess. Not you guys. Yeah. Incidentally, this is a self-portrait of my daughter, Geneva. She's not here. Her little brother is. Gloria is. Louis is standing in for Gloria, who usually goes around with me. But Gloria, not Gloria, this is Geneva. Geneva is actually expecting at any moment now, so Grandma has to be in Seattle. So if my phone rings while I'm here and I dash out, you'll know why.
We don't get phone reception here, so.
Oh yeah, no phone reception. Well, I've got Twitter here somewhere.
Voice over Twitter.
Somewhere, yeah. Yeah, I have another question there. Nope, nothing.
Mr. Larry Wall, you're famous for some of your comments in the configure script, so I'm curious, which of the platforms that Perl no longer builds on or supports do you like the most, or alternatively hate the least?
Hate the least. I don't know. All of the memorable things were about things I liked the least. So hate the least. I mean, I guess what I really I kind of liked Solaris when it came along, because the whole idea of configure was to get away way back in the dark ages. When people sent C programs around, they would configure them to go to other machines. They'd put if-def system 5 or if-def BSD, and then they would work on system 5 or BSD and nowhere else. So the idea of configure was to break that down further into feature by feature. So the configure script, figured all that stuff out, and then I guess so. My least unfavorite would probably be like Solaris, because they took System 5 and BSD and went into Solaris, and then the features automatically just picked the features that worked, and so it sort of proved my point in a way. That you didn't have to do it the other way. So maybe that's a good guess anyway.
The Amiga's mine for what it's worth.
Oh, the Amiga. Yeah, well, yeah, but I don't think configure ever ran on the Amiga, did it? I relied on other people to compile Perl for my Amiga. By the way, the Amiga 1000 is the first personal computer I ever owned, because before then, the computers that I had at work were always better than anything you could buy.
Hi, Larry. I've got a question about concurrency and multiprocessing, solving this problem on the language level, because previously we tried to solve it on the library level, which is pretty okay, but recently other languages try to solve it on the language level, like Erlang before, and now Go with the channels and those nice little nifty operators. Have you thought about this on Perl 6?
Yes. Yeah, the problem with solving it at a library level is that it doesn't actually help if your language does silly things that prevent parallelism. And to be honest, I did some silly things in the early design of Perl. Made a bunch of things global that really should not have been. And then as we tried to add threading on afterwards, you can't really treat globals as thread local. So yeah, there are some things you build into a language on the semantic level, but beyond that, in terms of Perl 6, our approach, because we see what's coming. We're 5 years ago, it was all one-core computers. Now it's 2, 4, 6 core computers. In another 5-10 years, it's going to be 1,000 cores. So we want Perl to scale up to that. So the Perl 6 approach, which I don't know how much of this can be borrowed back, stolen. Great art, right? Stolen back. But the Perl 6 idea is that you find ways of expressing syntactically natural parallelism. So if you have two arrays and you want to just add things up in parallel, we have a natural way of writing that such that the compiler knows if you have multiple cores, it could multi-thread it for you. Rather than an explicit threading model, which we'll probably also have, more Java-esque, but initially we're looking for ways of expressing parallelism. There's that kind of sort of vector processing like the old craze used to do, or you do in your GPU. The other kinds of parallelism, there's piping. So being able to feed a pipe of objects from one thread to another, that's more of an Erlang kind of idea. And other places where, from a language design point of view, the important thing is that you're promising you don't care what order things happen. And if you then write side effects that get you in trouble, then you shouldn't have promised that. So yeah, we're trying to feel our way into that future and trying to make different mistakes this time.
Hi. So I have a few questions, and no one's coming up, so I'll just start and keep going until someone else comes up. But I was curious. So, kind of picking back off of what was just said, I'm curious how many different languages you actually program in, just to get a kind of a feel for them when you're working. Because obviously you're working on Perl 6, but a lot of that involves actually having. Like good language design involves knowing how other languages really try to do something. I'm curious what other languages you've been playing with, or if you do that. Or
that's a kind of a funny question. Let me take an example that's kind of from linguistics. We had a talk earlier from there's what we call a polyglot, and there's what we call a linguist. A polyglot knows a lot of languages, and a linguist pretends to know a lot of languages, but just sort of understands how languages work. So you can be a linguist without being a polyglot. At least that's the story. And I tend to fall more in that category. So I been trying to teach myself Japanese for the last 6 or 8 years and kind of succeeding. I know a little bit of German, a little bit of classical Greek. I can read classical Greek if I have a dictionary. But I'm not really a polyglot in natural languages, but I understand a lot about how natural languages work. Same thing tends to carry over to the computer languages. So I don't do a lot of programming in JavaScript or Python or Ruby. So I rely on my friends to steal the ideas from those things on that level. But what I am familiar with is I look at the other languages and I see what the principles are that they've used to design them. Some of those are good principles. Some of them I think are not so good. So I try to borrow the good principles. So that tends to be the level on which I work. In terms of what I'm actually have programmed in Anger, I've programmed in Lisp, in C, Pascal, a little bit of Ada before there were any Ada compilers. So I guess that really doesn't count. A dabbling in the other modern languages, but other than that, I actually wrote Perl so I wouldn't have to program in C, and I still do about half of my programming in Perl 5 and Perl 6. So
that was my other question.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Larry.
Hey.
I was wondering if you could discuss your inspiration for what has become the Test Anything protocol.
Well, I didn't really call it a protocol. It's just that, you know, so I did not invent the acronym TAP. I just, when Perl 1 came out, you know, I just had I needed some way of doing testing, and I just said, well, okay, print OK1, print OK2, print OK3, and the test script read that. You know, there was no test harness or anything like that. It was just the script, the test script, read those things back in and, you know, essentially did the same thing. And it wasn't even really, you know, you talk about regression testing these days, and we, you know, test all the language features. In those days, it was more what you call acceptance testing. So it's like, as I was mentioning earlier, with the configure and testing all these features, we expected Perl to show up on many different architectures. It's not like today where there's, you know, there's Atom, there's 386, and not much else. So you know, there were hundreds of different architectures and operating systems, and you know, it was just big free for all back then. And so we expected people to port Perl to different architectures, and that's why we broke it down by features instead of by which operating system. But that means that Perl was going to run in a lot of places that, you know, maybe didn't quite implement the feature the same way as we expected it to. So the testing at that point, the little OK1, OK2, that was mostly to make sure that it had the right semantics on the machine it was going to, not to test the language itself. You know, and I never really did much more with that. I was quite amazed at what everyone has done with the whole TAP thing since then. It's been really cool watching other people take that and turn it into something real. It was just a little teeny seed of an idea, but.
Hi, Larry. I know you're a scientist as well as I am. And
yeah, didn't you notice in the science corner I was sort of hanging back there?
but you were over there.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay.
So, of course, we all know what Perl does well, and it can also do some other things. But other than BioPerl, Perl is usually not thought of for science. And is there something we can do to bring Perl's awareness back into the scientific community? And Python's got it pretty well locked up right now. And is there something you can think of or that would help push this a little bit that way again?
That's a hard question. That's a marketing question. You must have noticed that the first thing on my badge said marketing. You realize that all those things on the badge are lies. I mean, that's the first stage of marketing, right? But yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer for that yet. It's an excellent question, and sometimes excellent questions are better than lousy answers. You know, of course, you know, I have to say that some of what we've been doing with Perl 6 in the design, it's not implemented yet, is to build in some of this PDL kind of ideas into the way that arrays and objects will work, but. You know, we're not quite there with Perl 6 yet. That'll help a little, but that's not a marketing answer. That's a techie answer. So I do a little bit of marketing from time to time, but I'm not sure what the right answer on that is yet.
First question from the other side.
Ah, okay.
Hello?
Get a crick out of my neck here.
You know, it's a fantastically well attended YAPC, and I was just wondering how you, if you're surprised at all at both the longevity of Perl or the apparent renaissance of interest in the last couple of years.
Well, I'm not really surprised at the longevity of Perl. Way back in the early days of Perl, I said, I have some quote out there that basically said, if you want to design something that lasts for 10 years, do this. If you want something to last 20 years, do this. If you want something to last 40 years, design a computer language. I mean, this was more of a negative observation about things like Fortran. So yeah, I kind of knew that languages tend to hang on. When we started off the Perl 6 thing, we had a little, kind of different expectations as to how quickly we'd make progress on that. You may have noticed. But one thing we can say, though, is that the reason we felt secure in, taking a research step on Perl 6 was because Perl 5 was so stable. And by which I don't mean dead, not the biological sense. So, we expected it to keep on going more or less as it was. But then it's been really amazing that to see some of the original energy that went into the Perl 6 effort, then sort of bounce back into the Perl 5 community and result in a great deal of creative work there as well. Some of it can be blamed on the Perl 6 effort, but a lot of it is independent of that. Moose's object system is a good part of that, and that's closely related to Perl 6's object system. But there's other things that have been invented along the way for Perl 5 as well, and it's livelier today than it ever has been, and I think that's really cool. So, in that sense, I did not expect to see quite as much more new life in the Perl 5 community as we have, and that's a good way to be surprised.
So, Larry, speaking about new life in Perl 5, what are your thoughts on, the Perl 5 porters list? I don't know if you still watch or not, but Ricardo's talks were, he was talking about building more consensus on that and ways to do that. So I was wondering if you had advice for Pumpkin or people on P5P about how to build consensus and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. Be nice. The Perl 5 Porters has gone through some rough times in the past and some not so rough times, and I think that when things have gotten better, it's been because people have felt empowered to take charge of the community and call people out when they're getting out of line. It's when nobody feels like they can do that things tend to get out of hand. And that's been again, one of those things that's partly we started thinking about in the year 2000 when we said that we'd have a rewrite of the community, and some of that rewrite of the community has been healthy all around. As for the actual consensus, that's I am no longer actively dictating Perl 5 porters. I read threads occasionally when they're referred to me, but I don't. My brain is shrinking as I get older, and Perl 6 keeps expanding, and so there's. I try to specialize a little more in the Perl 6 end of things these days, but I do occasionally give advice back to the powers that be in the Perl 5 land. We've seen some interesting experiments over the last 10 years in some of the things that have been borrowed back from the Perl 6 design. Some of them have worked out very well. Some that looked like they were going to work out well did not work out well because the assumptions baked into Perl 5 were baked in when I was younger and knew different things. we're learning to recognize a little bit more the nature of the ideas that can come back and help out of research land, ivory tower land, and help Perl 5 and sort of if ideas depend too much on the type system that Perl 6 has, then they probably aren't going to work so well. There's consensus about short-term things and then consensus about long-term directions, and those kind of have to be negotiated separately, I guess. I'm starting to wander.
Hey, Larry. Long time no see. Anyway, I'm really excited at this conference for what I'm seeing about the progress of Rakudo and the other implementations of Perl 6. I'm also really excited about the amount of effort that's gone into really keep Perl 5 moving forward and becoming more modern, partially inspired by Perl 6, but partially just people getting in there, cleaning up stuff that's been a mess for years. Mm-hmm. I'm excited by the people that I'm talking to that are already using Perl in all sorts of applications and being very happy and satisfied and progressing with that. What I'm confused about on two levels is, and I'd like to see what your thoughts are on these, is there's been job postings in the LA Perl area, Los Angeles area for months, it seems, maybe years, that have gone unfulfilled for mid-range Perl programmers. Mm-hmm. There's been, Booking.com, sorry to mention them again, but yeah, you're still looking for 20 Perl programmers, right? Constantly. So there's a lot of desire to expand, but we seem to be resource short in that direction. Mm-hmm. And how do we get more people? I also want to say that I assert that there's more Perl programming happening today than there was 10 years ago, on an absolute number. Yeah. But I think it's also a smaller part of the pie overall of IT and mm-hmm. web dev and everything else that's going on. How do we get more slots at OSCON, more people coming out of school wanting to do Perl, mm-hmm. and get it back to the excitement that we had in the original days? And I think, maybe I'm just being nostalgic, but I think there's a huge amount of opportunity here. And I know a lot of people here that I've talked to here have that sort of sense too, that we're seeing great things in Perl, but it's just not getting out there to mm-hmm. bring in new blood. How do we do that?
Well, the game changed over the last 10, 20 years. When Perl first came out, there wasn't Ruby and there wasn't Python. There weren't there wasn't JavaScript. There are a lot more communities arguing for mindshare these days. So you've got to compete on the level of what the benefits are that the other communities aren't offering, it's not just a walk in the park anymore to convince people of that. But I think that making people more aware of the modernization of Perl can only help. On a longer term level, we need to figure out how to get into the schools and even the grade schools. That's one of the reasons that the logo for Perl 6 is a butterfly. Is that I would like Perl eventually to be appealing to 6-year-old girls. It has the added benefit that it scares away the old grumpy men who are scared that someone will think they're a 6-year-old girl. My manhead is not so easily threatened, I guess. It's actually worked pretty well that way. I have to give a strong second to what Schwern said at the beginning of our time here. Let's be a little intentional. This is just a little intentional in that direction of going after those demographics that are maybe not exactly the same as us. Yeah. Was there another part to your question I forgot?
Well, actually, just one additional thought. One of the things that scares me about the number of job postings for Perl, I know it should excite me that there's that many job postings, but if they go unfulfilled for a long time, I know hiring managers are going to say, I can't get Perl resources. And we're going to start losing even existing installations to other languages simply because there aren't enough people out there. Are there things that individuals can do here that you would be aware of that, like, to start introducing more people to Perl? I mean, should we be all going out and finding a friend, teaching them Perl? Would that be one way to do it? Or, I mean, do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah. The young people these days, you know, they want that hipster thing, you know. I'm not real good at that hipster thing. I'm okay with 6-year-old girl things, but so people like Miyagawa Sensei, you know, they're much better at that sort of thing. So be more like him.
Hey, Larry. So I ran a 5-day hardware hackathon here that was pretty well received. Thanks for those who have coming out. Yes, you're... Thank you. Which, of course, the Perl influence is obvious, but you're also to blame even further because for your X10 talk back many YAPCs ago.
Even though my X10 stuff was still in the airport when I gave the talk,
So I see a real, you know, to kind of follow up on Larry's, or to Randall's comment a little bit, is obviously I see a need in the whole Internet of Things. I see Perl could be used in scientific computing, not at the data level, at the collecting it, at the instrumentation level. I mean, I can just see Perl scripting entire testing labs and all kinds of stuff, which really excites me, tying into our TAP framework, all that. How do you see the future of the Internet of Things and Perl's place in it, and have you played with your Arduino that I suspect you're supposed to have?
Yeah, I've kind of been trying to avoid that because I know how addictive it will be. And you know, there's that shrinking brain and the growing problem again. So yeah, I want to. And yes, in fact, you know, if I go here and assuming I'm up here, okay. Okay, I can tell if somebody's rung my doorbell. Yeah. Though G3, I believe, is the motion sensor that's halfway out my front walk, as opposed to one that's all the way out or at the front porch. But yeah. So
you think this might be going somewhere?
Yeah. I mean, for sure.
I want to follow up on the science question with Perl. So as a scientist who uses Perl, sometimes, I mean, usually I like to concentrate on the science and, you know, use programmer efficiency, and usually that works great. Sometimes it breaks.
Yes. So what's your pain point?
Well, and then, you know, do I have to really worry about memory management? Do I have to, you know, instead of the convenience of a hash, if I'm filling up memory with that, blah, 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 you know? So I guess my thought about, I guess, Perl 6 and science a few years from now is what will I want to be doing a few years from now? What data am I going to get? What process am I going to want to do? What questions am I going to want to answer? And how well will Perl 6 handle those? So it's kind of parallel to your response to that of looking at say, parallel processing, I mean, what will machines be like a few years from now? But the other side of that is, what will the problems be like a few years from now, and will the language support those? So,
Yes.
I mean, this isn't really a question, but maybe to bring it to a question is, you know, are you having those sorts of dialogues in Perl 6 about, you know, where is science going? What kinds of questions might people want to program to answer?
That is, of course, a fuzzier thing to predict, I think, than where the hardware is going in the next 5-10 years. But yeah, I mean, certainly, it's been, if not directly, it's been discussed on a meta level, which is to say, we're not entirely sure what the problems we want to solve in 5 or 10 years are, but we sort of know something about the nature of a language that will let you tweak it into the problem-solving thing that you want. And a great deal of the thought that's gone into the design of Perl 6 has been, you know, what ways did Perl fall down in extensibility? I mean, Perl 5 is, you know, fabulously extensible, except, you know, source filters were sort of the wrong way to do it. And there were various ways in which it just wasn't quite right. And so a lot of the thinking in Perl 6 has been, well, how do you make domain-specific languages easier? How do you localize the tweaks you need for a particular problem solver, such that you can then compose problem solvers and solve newer problems even, without them interfering with each other. I mean, that's the problem with source filters. You write one source filter and you write a different source filter, you try to compose them and it blows up. And that's because the granularity is a little wrong. So it's been a lot of meta discussion about, you know, what's the right granularity? What peg do you hang each piece of data on that's the right peg and not the wrong peg, such that it's handy when you want it and not in the way when you don't want it? These sort of things, I mean, we are not smart enough to know what the problems will be in 10 years. If you have input on where you think the problems are going to be in 10 years, we're all ears. Because this whole Perl 6 design is a very iterative spiral thing. Right now, we had the initial design and we got several initial implementations, and we're getting a lot of feedback right now as to what's easy to implement or what's possible and wanted in some cases. And I'm doing a lot of work on sites like Rosetta Code, where we have hundreds of running examples of Perl 6, in order to try to field some of that very, you know, what are the kinds of problems that have been done and ought to be doable with Perl 6 easily. But you know, we need feedback on every level. It's obviously it's a fractal process where you know, there's feedback on short-term little things, and we also need lots of feedback on people's ideas of where things are going to be in 5 or 10 years, and then that in turn will direct you know, how we continue to extend the extensibility of Perl 6 and Perl 5 in whatever ways they can. I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer to you, but I am personally I've always loved everything to do with science. I mean, I have subscribed to scientific magazines since I was a little shorter, and read them avidly. But so at least on an emotional level, I'm all for it, and especially if it helps me live a few years longer down the road. I'm starting to think about those sorts of things. So, you know, any ideas that you have not seen expressed yet that you think we should be thinking about?
Well, you know, I'm not a visionary either about this. But I mean, what I do know is stuff that is hard to do, or you know, I try it the easy way, and well, gosh, that didn't work, so maybe I need to memory map files, or I need to, you know, use disk space for sorting, or something like that, or I need to I have to rewrite the code so that the hash keys don't fill up memory. I mean, I have those things that are hard, and then I see that, well, gosh, you know, now I'm a few years ago it was like gigabytes of data, and now it's terabytes of data, and many different experiments, and you know, so this problem is going to keep growing. That the Moore's law, the rate of increase in data, and at least the biological sciences, seems to be growing faster than you know, storage and memory is growing.
So yeah, what I hear you saying is you worked at on a particular, you know, with a particular built-in abstraction that Perl has already, and then it kind of ran out of steam, and you couldn't switch to a different model underneath and keep the same abstraction. And so it was painful to do it a different way. And I think we're getting some understanding of how better to decouple the interfaces, the APIs to what you want to do, and how it chooses how pluggable it is underneath. That also is, and we have a fancy technical term in Perl 6 called representational polymorphism. But that basically means is, you know, we don't tell you how your objects are, you know, where they are, how their data is stored. You just call the methods, and the representation figures out where it really is. So that kind of pluggability, as we can introduce it into both Perl 6, where it already is, and into Perl 5, where the ongoing work in putting meta-object stuff in there may help it. Perl 5 to also be more pluggable on that level. We're recognizing that some of the pain is just making assumptions that there's only one way to do things, and that's sort of a non-Perl thing to do. We don't want to assume there's only one way to do things. So yeah.
Can we take one more from the other side of the room?
I've used Perl on a lot of different machines. I've used it on HP 1000 and on an IBM mainframe and on a Windows machine. When am I going to be able to use it on my Android phone?
Is anybody porting a C compiler to?
Well, there's a Perl Foundation grant right now for cross-compiling to Android.
Okay, Okay, well, there's some work on that in getting Perl 5, and certainly the Perl 6's various implementations are thinking about how to have different backends that can run on. One of the things we realized at the very beginning of the Perl 6 effort was that we had one reference implementation, and it was in C, and that did not necessarily port very easily to something like a JVM or a CLR. Or these days a phone. We've been thinking about this for a number of years now. Did you want to add something to that, Sabat?
Just that our expectation is that the next virtual machine will likely target after Parrot is going to be the JVM.
Okay. Patrick says that probably the next VM that they will target after Parrot is JVM. I hope I answered your question. Yeah.
This is my first YAPC, and I just want to say thank you to everybody for such. This has been a very high-quality, kick-ass experience. And for people who are looking to attract more people to Perl, that's it, right? It's very fulfilling to to participate in something like this. My question is about the Raptor.
MST, where are you?
I mean, yeah, it's on the shirts, it's on the web.
Mm-hmm.
It appeals to my inner Janeway. I like it. Before there's competing versions of where that came from, what do you remember or know about that?
Oh, I don't know. I was clueless.
I got a blog post telling you where it comes from.
Blog. Oh, you have a blog? Yeah.
Go to mdk.per.ly. Go looking back for Velociraptor. You'll find out it was originally a Damien joke, and Larry made a comment that I pulled out of the IRC logs about it.
Yeah, originally my original take on the joke was, a Velociraptor is, always going to lose in the long run to an Acceleraptor, but.
All right, so we're running down on time, so I'll try to shorten my original question. But I've been working with a lot of the very computer science-y, academic, mathy-wathy types.
My condolences.
Over the past couple of years. And in the process, though, I've gotten to learn Lisp and some Haskell and some of the theories and whatnot behind that. The thing is, I don't really see Perl in that space, in that computer science space. And indeed, when I have to go down to the metal and actually think about algorithms, Perl's great for high-level algorithms. It doesn't seem to be great for low-level algorithms. But maybe I'm kind of wrong. I just don't see it being taught in the curriculums, computer science schools, And I was wondering what you see between the relationship between computer science and Perl. Both Perl 5 and Perl 6.
Sure. Excellent question. As I fessed up, I mostly came at this from a linguistics background and felt free to, at the beginning, to ignore many of the known results of computer science, and of had to remake the same mistakes that Lisp made in some cases. And it's kind of funny to seeing PHP following in Perl's footsteps on that, only more slowly. But with Perl 5, I started reawakening to my. I also did study some computer science along with my linguistics. And I realized that, or began to realize that, yeah, you can actually have a sound technical foundation underneath and start putting some of these highfalutin comp sci concepts in, as long as you don't tell people you did that. So when Perl 5 came out and we had anonymous subroutines, well, that's cool. You can take a reference to them. Well, okay, it seems like their feature is that they're anonymous. Well, but what their real feature is that they are closures and they close over their lexicoscopes. But we weren't going to explain that to you at that point because you wasn't ready to hear it.
I might also add, you'll be pleased to know that while working with those types and coding Perl, they were just floored. You have closures? I didn't know you had closures. Wait, you have a symbol table to munch? Yeah. They did push macros in my face, and we will get them.
Yeah. Several years ago, I was at the HOPL, the History of Programming Languages, and I was on a panel to do scripting languages. I talked about the scripting languages, but the functional programming guy got up and he said, hey, here are the unsuccessful functional programming languages. And he put Lisp, Scheme, I think he had Haskell there. He said, here are the successful functional programming languages, Perl, Ruby. So there's some recognition there that Perl actually is or can be used as a functional programming language in some sense. So we really did it right with the closures. So we kind of learned. Yeah, we can try to keep a language that is accessible to people of sort of the. I call my theory of design the very little brain approach, because there's some ways in which I identify much more with the basic programmers than the Haskell programmers. So there's ways in which we can help people come at it from that direction without necessarily compromising the underpinnings that make for good hygiene, as it were. So Perl 6 will in fact have hygienic macros. That's the other extreme from source filters. It means you write macros with the abstract syntax tree, and it does the right thing. There are other concepts that we have snuck into Perl 6 without trying to inflict them on the people who are not ready for them. Lazy lists. We had some discussion about this. If you assign an array in Perl 6, it still does it eagerly, because that's what a Perl 5 programmer expects. But there's ways of making it not calculate things until you need to, and then you can talk about lists that are infinitely long, and it's really handy sometimes. And to allow the abstract associations to be made right underneath, while keeping it, a normal language that 6-year-old girls might want to learn, without falling into the trap that most functional programming languages fall into, where you kind of have to know the whole thing, or a lot of it. A 6-year-old girl is not going to learn Haskell. Yeah, not very quickly. Well, maybe a really smart one, smarter than me. That is one of the pushes for the Perl 6 design, that there's lots of things there that can probably be backported to Perl 5 as well. On the other hand, the object-oriented stuff, you've already seen a lot of the fruit of having things like Moose and some of the dispatch mechanisms that you have available with that. And that also is an area where we are trying to, it's really two different cultures in computer science. There's the whole stateless culture of functional programming and the whole stateful culture of object-oriented programming. And they really fight in most of the world. But we saw that we were starting to actually be able to combine them with Perl 5, and we're continuing that process with Perl 6, and hopefully that similar integration of those two paradigms will continue to improve in both Perl 5 and Perl 6.
And I want to thank you in general. You keep working on that Perl 6 thing, and keep working on a class for 6-year-olds. We'll see you in 6 years.
Okay. Well, the 6-year-olds grow into 16-year-olds, and then they're 26, and they're the teachers that pick the next curriculum. So in 20 years from now, we'll be there.
Thank you very much. And I guess that brings us to the last raffle.
You want this?
Not really.
I was going to raffle it. Well, while we're getting things set up here, just a real quick announcement. There was a black sweatshirt with kind of interesting saying on the front. I was laying on one of the podiums in the Pile Center, or one of the desks in the Pile Center, so You're missing a black sweatshirt. Also, on one of the podiums, this was the dongle that does not belong to the university. There's no writing on it, but it was left up there as well. So if you're missing a dongle, it was in one of the 300 rooms, 325, I think. Somewhere on the third floor. Yeah, and this one was in 313, I believe. And then this was also found and turned in to registration. So,
is that a Nokia micro USB cord?
It looks like one. Yes, it is.
Give me that USB cable. It says Nokia on it.
That's yours? Or yours?
It's probably his.
Okay. Come on up. I'll actually have somebody run these back to the back table, and they're yours.
Wait, isn't that a $50 Pearl Foundation?
Yeah. Since they were left.
Ready? You're ready. Go ahead. He's gonna do a quick announcement for
Okay.
hackathon, and then.
Go ahead.
So the lightning talks are just a few minutes away. During the plenary, they're going to finish up using the screen early, and we'll have about 10 minutes while they're still doing things. During that time, all the lightning talk speakers should come up, try their machine, and pop over here to say hello. And I'm putting the white camels first, because if you have to leave for an airplane, you want to see those. After that, if you have to leave, just sit on that side of the room and go during an advertisement. We'll be sorry to see you go, but you got to do what you got to do. So, see you in a bit.
Thank you. All right, well, thanks again, everybody. I'd like to thank our sponsors very much. Without people sponsoring, without people donating, these type of conferences would not be possible. So we really appreciate it. And in the years as your businesses grow on the Pearl base, think about giving to the next NA conferences. They, if they don't contact you, you can always contact them. So again, thanks very much to all the sponsors.